It is now confirmed that the Bahrain Grand Prix and the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix will not be taking place in April. And this is because of the ongoing situation in Middle East and the entire region. And I think this was a decision that was actually expected, given that in Middle East, the situation does not seem to be de-escalating, which of course puts the lives of those people who are actually involved in Formula One at risk if they were to actually travel to Bahrain or go to Saudi Arabia for the Formula One races in April. Of course, this is not good news for the sport, it is not good news for Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, and of course it's also not good news for Formula One. Everyone in the sport and across the Formula One value chain is not going to be excited by this particular news. But when you look at it, it does make sense because you do not want to put people in harm's way. You do not want to put, the personnel, the drivers, the people who support the team, and also the fans who would have wanted to watch the races in those two countries in harm's way, given the escalating situation in the region. And that's because, when you have many people in one area, they could probably become a target, of the people who are actually involved in the situation. And you don't want that to happen. And to be fair to Formula One, I think this decision was the right decision under the current circumstances. Of course, that means that there will be a lot of issues related to logistics, but at the same time, there might be some financial loss depending on the contracts with the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian organizers or event promoters. And the idea, in a nutshell, would be if it is the circuits who requested this particular cancellation to be in effect, then they will probably be required to continue or to still pay the fees of entry into the Formula One. But if it is the Formula One who made the decision to cancel these two races, then they are going to absorb that financial loss. And when you listen to the F1 president, then it became clear that this was a decision that was, a joint decision between F1, the event promoters in those countries, as well as the FIA. So the details probably will come or will become clearer as days goes by, but at least that's the situation, that the Bahrain Grand Prix and the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix will not be taking place in April, and there are no plans to actually reschedule them or even replace them with other races. If this is the first time that you and I are meeting, I am Joe, and on this YouTube channel, I talk about Formula One and the business of Formula One. And I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to this YouTube channel. Formula One is a global sport and it is a global business, which actually means that it can be affected by a lot of things that are taking place across the world. And this is the situation when you look at the cancellation of the Bahrain Grand Prix as well as the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Because the reason for it is because of an issue that is outside, the scope of Formula One. Is something that they cannot be able to control. And when you consider that the sport moves across all the continent except Africa in the world, then it shows you that it is truly a global sport. But of course, there's a question there because you cannot be a global sport without or with leaving Africa out of it. But at least it indicates to you that things that can be happening in various areas in the world can affect the Formula One calendar. And it will be very interesting to see how this situation evolves because Middle East is one of the lucrative markets for Formula One, and there are about 4 races in the 2026 Formula One season in Middle East. The other ones are in Qatar and also Abu Dhabi. And while those 2 races come later in the year, with Abu Dhabi being the final race in the season, if the situation in Middle East continues to, to escalate, or if it doesn't get solved by the time those races are coming into play, Then it will be very interesting to see whether they will also be cancelled or what will happen to the calendar. Because I am not sure that Formula One had planned for a season with the 20 races. They would still want to have all the 22 remaining races, but it would be unfortunate if Qatar and Abu Dhabi would also be required to be cancelled because of the situation that is happening in Middle East. Another issue that is arising from this cancellation is that there are teams whose kits and equipment are still in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. And when you consider that the airspace into Bahrain is actually closed, that makes it very difficult, or at least it makes it a logistical nightmare to actually get some of those things out of Bahrain. Because it would mean almost flying into Saudi Arabia or into Jeddah and then doing a road trip to go to Bahrain and back to Jeddah, or try to find a country where you can be able to evacuate those things while still staying within the rules that are in place. And considering that most of the teams are actually out of UK or are UK based, and UK has listed, Bahrain as some of the places you should not fly into at this particular moment, it means that maybe even teams will require government approval to get into that area. And even worse is the fact that maybe insurance does not cover Bahrain or getting to Bahrain under the current circumstances. This is of course going to become a logistical nightmare and also a very costly affair for the teams that might want to actually send part or some of their teams to Bahrain and Saudi Arabia to get some of the things that they need to get out of that place. And also being able to actually transport them to wherever they want to take them, whether that is in Europe or other areas, is going to be a challenging period. And I do hope that they can be able to find a solution that works for everyone and that is also safe for the people who are involved. This is going to be it from me on this particular video, and I do hope that you have enjoyed this conversation. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not, and I'm going to see you in my next video.